Hello students. Now as we are continuing with your cardiovascular system, there are certain issues which I left in my earlier classes. I will try to finish up all those certain issues and also approach towards my next section of classes. As I have written here, you can now see by this time that precise determination of cardiac output. As I have told you in my earlier classes, the final function, final execution of our heart is cardiac output, and that cardiac output, that means the amount of blood which is coming out from each ventricle per minute, that is known as cardiac output. And as we are discussing mainly the systemic circulation, so that amount of blood which is entering into the systemic circulation, we are discussing that time and again. When I discussed about that, I told you repeatedly that cardiac output is mainly dependent upon the pumping function of heart. Pumping function of heart, as and when and with a certain amount of strength and power, the ventricle pumps, and leading to propulsion of a good amount of blood into the systemic circulation or in pulmonary circulation, and that is cardiac output. And it can be deduced somehow it can be deduced quite rationally that cardiac output is the function of ventricle, or cardiac output is solely and only the function of ventricle. This kind of conclusion can be derived from my erstwhile discussion, and it is also not untrue, it is not false, it is not a it is a reality also, that cardiac output is primarily a function of pumping action of ventricle. That is true. But obviously there are certain other points, and those points are also quite crucial, quite important, quite relevant, and quite adequate to require a kind of discussion. If you try to think a situation that as the heart is pumping, if it is pumping in such a vessel which is having a large volume, suppose a pump is pumping its content or its fluid into a particular vessel which is having a large volume, and in another situation same pump is pumping similar amount or same volume of fluid into a vessel which is having a lesser volume. So obviously ultimately the outcome will be a bit different. Obviously the outcome will be a bit different. In these two occasions, the outcome will be a bit different, and truly speaking, the pump output will also be different. So as I have written here, the precise determination of cardiac output, in the main, cardiac output is the function of ventricle, pumping function of ventricle. But when we say the precise determination of cardiac output or moment to moment determination of cardiac output, when we determine the moment to moment determination of cardiac output, then we need to consider not only the pumping function of ventricle, but also the issue of vessels, issue of vascular compartment, where the pumped blood is entering, where the ventricular ejection is entering. And finally, that will also determine the cardiac output. So precise determination of cardiac output or final determination of cardiac output will not only dependent on the pumping function of ventricle, but also dependent upon the amount or role played by the vessel in response. So I have written here that you need to match the cardiac function in one hand. So you need to match the cardiac function and vascular function. So there is an issue of matching the cardiac function and vascular function. Or in other words, we can say there is a necessity to matching the cardiac output and venous return. Vascular function means it is exemplified by return of blood to the heart. So cardiac output and venous return must be suitably matched, or in other words, the cardiac function and vascular function must be suitably matched, and that is where the question of integration of cardiac and vascular systems are required. So today we shall try to think something about that. Now if we simply draw the cardiovascular system, suppose this is heart, and this is the vessel, this is the vascular system, So this is the heart and this is the vascular system. Suppose this is exemplifying the peripheral circulation or systemic circulation, arterial side, venous side, and this is overall systemic circulation. Now heart is by and large, pumping action of heart is by and large regulated by four factors, 1, 2, 3 and 4. 1 is preload, 2 is afterload, 3 is inotropic state, and 4th is heart rate, on which I did not discuss much. But these are the 4 classical factors which regulate the pumping function of heart. And what is regulating the vascular function? Vascular function is, as I have told you earlier, that vascular function, vessels is a kind of RC circuit, resistor capacitor circuit. So it is the capacitance, and it is the resistance. These are the two things which regulate the vascular function. Now throughout our discussion till now, for these last 8 classes, or especially for last 4 classes, we mainly discussed upon the resistant system. We symbolized vascular system as a resistor system. But vascular system, apart from being a very good resistor system, is also a capacitor system. A large amount of capacitance is there, and it is mainly the veins and venular system which is largely a capacitance system, where large amount of blood can be capacitated. Now so today I like to say something about this capacitance function of vascular system, which I did not emphasize much, but it requires some amount of emphasis. So a kind of a capacitor function or capacitance function of the vessels we need to know, and by means of which, by that we can to some extent understand the vascular function. Now to know that we for as usual we like to take the help of certain diagrams, certain graphs. Now, before doing so, let us discuss something about the venous return. Now, how venous return is taking place? So, as the veins are valvular, veins containing valve. So, if this is a vein, there are mucosal duplication in the vein. Like this. So, as a result of which, veins are ensuring only one-way propagation of blood. So, veins are ensuring a one-way propagation of blood because veins containing valve. So, one-way propagation of blood because veins containing valve. Now, this venous return, so venous return is always towards heart. Venous return, as the name suggests, return, it is returning to the heart. Now, what are the gross physiological factors which regulate venous return? That we need to know first. There are certain gross physiological factors which regulate the return of blood to the heart. What are they? Number one, we typically say there is known as muscle pump. So muscle pump. Number two is vessel pump. Number three is thoracic pump. Number four is heart pump. So one is muscular pump, second is vascular pump, third is thoracic pump, and fourth is heart pump. So when we are contracting our vessels, when we are contracting our muscles, when you are contracting our muscles, when you are exercising, when you are doing something, there is muscle contraction, and as the muscles are contracting, it also compressing the veins, because veins are low pressure system, they can be easily compressed. So veins are compressed, and whenever veins are compressed, it will lead to squeezing of veins. So blood will move, and blood will move in a single direction because veins are valved in nature. So veins are valved in nature, thereby ensuring one-way propulsion of blood. And when we are contracting our muscle during muscular exercise, during various types of activity, there is one-way propulsion of blood, and that is known as muscle pump. Now this muscle pump is largely aiding the venous return. It is largely aiding the venous return. It is one of the major important factor which is causing venous return. So that is number one. Number two, vessel pump. You know that vessels are continuously inflating and recoiling, expanding and recoiling, as it is started in the Windkessel vessels. As it has started in the Windkessel vessels, it is flowing through the elastic vessels, large artery, medium-sized artery, up to small artery. So we can palpate our pulse in our radial vessels. So vessels, arteries are continuously expanding and recoiling, expanding and recoiling, and that is also helping the forward propulsion of blood. This forward propulsion of blood is also known as visa targi. That is also known as visa targi. Visa targi. Visa targi means forward propulsion of blood. Not only that, thoracic pump means when we are inspiring, taking respiration, causing inspiration, there is formation of relative subatmospheric pressure in the thorax, or relative lowering of pressure in the thorax. So thorax will tend to pull the blood in, suck the blood in towards heart, tend to pull the blood in or suck the blood in to the heart, and that is a kind of a negative suction, and that is known as thoracic pump. And this thoracic pump is also sometimes known as visa fronti, and that was visa targi, and that is known as visa fronti. visa fronti, these are all Latin. And finally the heart pump, as heart is pumping, heart is also causing some amount of forward propulsion of blood. So heart is causing pressure head, as a result of which there is cardiac output, ventricular volume is ejected into the vessel, and through vessel it is passing through, and ultimately it is also to some extent, not much. In venous return, the contribution of heart pump is not much, but still there are some amount of contribution, although a lesser significance or a lesser proportion, but there is also a some amount of contribution to visa turgid, some amount of contribution to the visa turgid by the heart pump also. So these are some of the popular factors. Now in this way, when we say the various factors contributing to the venous return, it is a kind of a popular presentation. We are continuing with this kind of teaching for decades and centuries, and this is the way. Now, this is that. Now, as the things are going on, as we are learning more and more, we need to know something else, something more also. Some mechanistic part of it. Physiology is dealing with the mechanism part. Now, how this venous return is taking place mechanically, mechanistically, or what is the mechanism of action that is needed to know in order to understand the alteration in disease state. So, there is some mechanism we need to know. Now, to do that, we take the course of certain graphical representation. We take the course of certain graphical representation. Now again, before starting these vascular graphs, I'd like to have a bit 1 minute recapitulation of cardiac function curve. Now we have taught in detail the cardiac function curve. Here it was EDVV, and there it was stroke volume, and that was the ventricular performance curve or Starling curve. We discussed plenty of times. So in the EDVV and stroke volume, and that becomes the Starling curve or ventricular performance curve, which states that within physiological limit, the energy of contraction is directly proportional to the resting length of the cardiac muscle fiber, and that is the derivation of that Starling's curve. This is the derivation, and it is called ventricular function curve or cardiac function curve. It is being known. Now for today's purpose, we like to modify this curve a bit. For today's purpose, we like to modify this curve a bit. How we can do so? Now try to imagine the x-axis or independent variable is EDVV, end diastolic ventricular volume. So that is the x-axis. That is the independent variable, which when changed, that will cause change here. Now tell me, what are the factors which determine EDVV? What are the factors which can determine EDVV? So if this is the heart, this is right atrium, this is left atrium, this is right ventricle, this is left ventricle. And here all the bloods are getting accumulated in the right atrium. All the systemic circulations are reaching the right atrium. Systemic circulation. Currently we are discussing about the systemic circulation. All the systemic circulations are reaching the right atrium. Now, on which the end diastolic ventricular volume will depend? So end diastolic ventricular volume will depend upon the extent of ventricular filling, isn't it? The amount of ventricular filling will ultimately determine the end diastolic ventricular volume. Now on which this amount of ventricular filling will depend? So end diastolic ventricular volume, if you write that end diastolic ventricular volume, it will depend upon at least three things. First of all, the pressure gradient from atrium to ventricle. The pressure gradient from atrium to ventricle, that means pressure build up in the atrium. Because at the end of in diastole, in the ventricle, the pressure is almost zero. So pressure build up in atrium, that is one of the important feature. So the pressure gradient, atrioventricular pressure gradient, that is one important thing. Or we can say the atrial pressure. We can simply say it is atrial pressure. Number two, time of ventricular filling. The time duration of diastole. That also will determine the amount of ventricular volume at the end of diastole. And third thing is the ventricular compliance. If the ventricle is more stretchable, more compliant, that will accommodate large amount of blood. If the ventricle is less compliant, more stiff, that will lead to lesser amount of accumulation of blood. So these are the three main factors which determine the end diastolic ventricular volume. And what are the factors which determine the end systolic ventricular volume? Those classical pumping factors: preload, afterload, inotropic state, heart rate. We all know. So the factors which determine the end diastolic ventricular volume are mainly three: the pressure gradient, atrioventricular pressure gradient, or simply the pressure in the atrium. Number two is the duration of diastole, and number three is the ventricular compliance, ventricular stretchability. Now out of these three, pressure in the atrium remains the pressure variable, a major pressure variable, because duration of diastole will depend upon many things. Compliance of ventricle is an inherent property of ventricle. So we can, for the time being, we can ignore them for our purpose for the time being. So it is the pressure in the atrium which will largely determine the end diastolic ventricular volume. So instead of writing here, so if we try to modify this type of this curve, instead of end diastolic ventricular volume, we seem to write a RAP, or right atrial pressure, because it is the right atrium where all the systemic circulation are returning. So we can write RAP instead of end diastolic ventricular volume, we can write RAP. Or in case of stroke volume, we used to write cardiac output. Stroke volume is also a kind of cardiac output, a stroke output, although cardiac output is classically defined as the minute volume. So we can write. Now if we write like that, somehow the curve with a little modification somehow remain like this. As we are increasing the RAP, the cardiac output will increase. If experimentally RAP is increased, right atrial pressure is increased, the cardiac output will also increase. So this is a kind of modified cardiac function curve which I depict for your understanding. So this is number one. So this part is not that difficult. If we understand the earlier ventricular function curve, then this kind of modification with a little bit of transfer function we can accept. Now next, try to understand the vascular function curve. Now vascular function curve is classically depicted like this. Again, try to imagine the vascular function. The vascular function is mainly the return of blood to the heart. How the blood is returning? Through the veins, through the venous return, and through venous return, blood is returning to the heart. Say blood is returning to the right atrium. So it is ultimately again the right atrial pressure which remains a determinant of the venous return. So to determine the cardiac output, the relationship between right atrial pressure and cardiac output remain direct. Increase in right atrial pressure lead to increase in cardiac output. But what happens in case of venous return? If the right atrial pressure increases, whether the venous return will increase or decrease? Because venous return is taking place from the systemic circulation and it is aimed to reach at the right atrium. So as per right atrial pressure and venous return is concerned, the relationship is inverse. So if we write like that, it is rather inverse it is rather inverse in nature. So if this is right atrial pressure and if this is venous return per minute, if this is right atrial pressure, so as the right atrial pressure is decreasing, venous return is increasing, because venous return is taking place with a pressure gradient from the systemic venous pressure to the right atrial pressure, from systemic venous pressure to the right atrial pressure. So if the right atrial pressure is decreasing, then and then only the venous return will increase. But there is a twist in the story. The twist is, it will not increase unlimitedly. After some time, it becomes plateau. It becomes straight line. Why? Because after some time, when right atrial pressure is less than 0, after some time when the right atrial pressure is less than 0, what will happen? The vena cava, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and all local veins, they got collapsed. And if they got collapsed, how the venous return is possible? So venous return cannot increase further. So as the veins are getting collapsed, as the veins are getting gradually collapsed, not fully, getting collapsed, so further increase in venous return is not possible and it becomes plateau. So this is known as vascular function curve. With reduced RAP, venous return will increase till the veins are started collapsing, then there will be no further rise in the venous return and it becomes a plateau. So it is a kind of a knee, hatur moto, just like a knee kind of curve. So this is again, I feel it is not very difficult to understand. But there are something which you need to know. See, if you extend this curve, it will reach somewhere here when the RAP becomes 0. When the RAP becomes 0, the venous return is also 0. See, when RAP becomes 0, venous return is also 0. So this is an important thing. So when RAP becomes 0, venous return also becomes 0. And as RAP is increasing gradually, RAP is decreasing gradually, not 0, sorry, I'm a bit wrong here, in a certain, not 0, sorry, please forgive me. So in a certain RAP, I can write that value, it is around 6 to 8 millimeter of mercury. It is around 6 to 8 millimeter of mercury. At this point, the venous return becomes 0. Please ignore my earlier two statements. So at around 6 to 8 millimeter of mercury of RAP, the venous return becomes 0. And as the RAP is reducing, venous return is increasing, and after some times, in a sub-zero RAP, the venous return becomes plateau. So what is this? So this RAP, when RAP is 6 to 8 millimeter of mercury, you can understand that RAP, right atrial pressure, is sufficiently high so that venous return is stopped. So the venous pressure, overall venovascular pressure must be more than 6.8 millimeter of mercury, so that venous return become possible, so that it is more than the RAP is less than that. So systemic venovascular pressure must be more than 6.8 millimeter of mercury, so that RAP pressure is less than that and venous return become possible. Can you understand this? I just repeat because I created the confusion. So as the RAP is getting reduced, the venous return is increasing till when RAP is getting sub-zero, the venous return becomes flat, because when RAP becomes sub-zero, the veins are getting collapsed. So this part is understandable. Now at a point of RAP around 6 to 8 millimeter of mercury, the venous return is zero. Why zero? Because the systemic venovascular pressure must overcome RAP. Must be of such a level, systemic venovascular pressure must be of such a level that it can overcome RAP, and it should be more than RAP, so that a pressure gradient remains. So this is the pressure, 6 to 8 millimeter of mercury in the venovascular bed, which is the limiting pressure below which venous return is not possible. So we need to consider a bit more about this pressure. How this pressure, what is this pressure, and how this pressure is generated. What is this pressure, how this pressure, and what is the mechanism, or what is the detail of this pressure, that we need to understand it. Now to understand that, we need to understand an experiment. We need to understand an experiment. We all know that physiology is all about experiment. What is that experiment? This experiment was performed. It is a very famous experiment, historically famous experiment. It was performed by Professor Guyton, Arthur Guyton. Now this experiment states, so the motto, the objective of that experiment was to understand the contribution of vessels, contribution of vascular characteristics in the cardiovascular system, contribution of vascular characteristics. Because we are talking all along, we are talking about heart, all along we are talking about heart. We usually talk less about vessels, other than the resistance issue. We talk less about vessels, we all along talk about heart. So what is the role of vessels? Now you must appreciate that starting the vessel is quite difficult, because there is heart. Heart is generating pressure. Heart is propelling blood into the vessels. Heart is contributing pressure into the vessels. So how can you independently examine the vessels? It is difficult. Examine the vessels independently. It is very difficult. At least in whole body situation. You can cut a portion of vessel, take out the vessel, study its structure, see it under microscope, even study its individual functional structure of the its functional elements. That is also possible. But how in the intact body you can study the response of vessels? It is difficult, because there is heart. Heart is pumping blood, pumping pressure, influencing the vessels, expanding it, recoiling it, so on and so forth. So Guyton, Professor Guyton, devised an unique experiment. What he did, in an animal model, he replaced the heart. In an animal model, he replaced the heart and replaced the heart by a heart-lung machine. So he simply replaced the heart and arranged a heart-lung machine, which is pumping the, which is continuing the pumping, and it is producing the cardiac output. But that machine you can manipulate, can regulate, can control. So he posted a machine, artificial heart machine, which one can control. Now if you do that, and somehow animal was going on, heart was removed, replaced by a heart machine, and it is controlling the cardiac output, blood is propelled into the vessel, blood is returning into the that chamber, artificial chamber, again pumped back, so it is going on. Now what he did after some time, and as he can regulate the cardiac output by manipulation, he was maintaining a cardiac output of say 5 liters per minute. In a dog species, in a dog, big dog, he was maintaining it, that a cardiac output of 5 liter was maintained, just like that. Suppose this is the x-axis, this is in the time, and he was maintaining a cardiac output of 5 liter. He was maintaining a cardiac output of 5 liter, and the pressure maintained in the arterial system was around 100 millimeter of mercury, and pressure in the venous system was maintained at around 5 millimeter of mercury. So that was the situation was going on. So a 5 liter cardiac output was maintained in that experimental animal, and it was seen that the mean arterial pressure is maintained at 100 millimeter of mercury, and mean venous pressure was maintained at around 5 millimeter of mercury. And that experiment was going on for some time. Now what he did then, he suddenly put off the pump. Suddenly that pump is put off, so cardiac output will become 0. So when the pump is put off, and cardiac output becomes 0, let us see what will happen to mean arterial pressure and mean venous pressure. So it was found immediately arterial pressure will fall. Massive fall in arterial pressure. But there is a rise in venous pressure, and finally a steady state pressure is formed. So there is a massive fall in arterial pressure, a little rise in venous pressure, and there is a stabilization. After some time there is a stabilization of a pressure, and that was around, say, 7 millimeter of mercury. So this is the thing. So an animal was kept on an artificial pump where you can maintain the specific amount of cardiac output. When cardiac output was maintained at 5 liter per minute, at that situation, if suddenly the pump is switched off, the arterial pressure will fall, the venous pressure will rise till it reaches a steady state single pressure, and that is around 7 to 8 millimeter of mercury. Now, why this pressure? Issue is why this pressure. And what is so there is no pump, no propulsion, no systemic ejection of blood, but in overall vessel, an overall cardiovascular system, a steady state pressure is maintained, that is around 6 to 8 millimeter of mercury. Now, if we again just repeat the experiment, now in the next occasion, if we repeat the experiment with a cardiac output of, say, 2.5 liter, then again we restart the experiment with a cardiac output of 2.5 liter per minute. Again, what will happen? The arterial pressure will rise, not that much, to some extent, rise and will continue, and venous pressure will fall, not that much, to some extent, and will continue at 2.5 liter. If we again increase the pump to, say, 4 liter, if we increase the pump to 4 liter, again it will rise and then it will continue, and here also it will fall a bit and it will continue. Now in that juncture, if we again shut off the pump, again it will fall a value, and it will rise a value, and that will become again a stabilized value, and that is again 7 millimeter of mercury. So this value is same. So see, based upon the initial cardiac output, the rise in arterial pressure or fall in vascular pressure is being determined, and accordingly see. So when the pump is off, when the pump is made switched off, it will always reach a pressure which is more or less unique, which is more or less same in a particular animal, in a particular experimental situation, with a particular level of blood volume, with a particular level of vasomotor tone, with a particular, if blood volume is same, vasomotor tone is kept same, then it will always reach a particular value. And this is said, this is an inherent property of in vivo vessels. Inherent property of in vivo vessels. Inherent property of in vivo vessels, and this is dependent upon the compliance or capacitance of the vessels. So it is the capacitance of the vessels, capacity to hold the blood, capacity to hold the blood by its compliance and elastance combination property, mainly compliance. And as because the compliance of venous system is around 18 to 20 times more than the arterial system, it is mainly exhibiting the venous compliance. It is mainly exhibiting the venous compliance. Now this pressure is as named by Guyton as mean circulatory filling pressure, MCFP, mean circulatory filling pressure. So it is the filling pressure of overall circulatory system. It is the filling pressure or pressure produced as a result of filling of blood throughout the circulatory system without any externally applied pressure, because heart is not pumping. Without any externally applied pressure, without any externally applied pressure, it is the overall inherent vascular filling pressure, and that is known as MCFP. Overall vascular filling pressure or vascular distending pressure. And actually this pressure, this fundamental pressure is one of the important factor for venous return. To have the venous return, RA pressure, right atrial pressure must be lesser than MCFP. Right atrial pressure must be lesser than MCFP. If I draw those figure again, I must draw that figure again. If we draw the vascular function curve again, so this is the thing. This is RAP, this is cardiac output, or you can say venous return. Better to write venous return, RAP and venous return, and the picture is like this. So it is an indirect relation with plateau, and cause of plateau I mentioned due to collapsible of vein, and I am discussing this point, and this is the point of mean circulatory filling pressure or mean systemic filling pressure, MSFP, mean circulatory filling pressure or mean systemic filling pressure. So RAP must be more than MCFP. Must be less. बार-बार भूल बोलছি. So RAP must be less than MCFP. RAP must be lesser than MCFP in order to produce venous return. RAP must be lesser than MCFP in order to produce a venous return. And what is MCFP? It is the inherent pressure, filling pressure of the overall vascular system without having any externally applied pressure. এই একটা ক্লাস নিচ্ছি রে, কোন ইমার্জেন্সি আছে? হ্যাঁ, আধ ঘন্টা পর ফোন করছি। হ্যাঁ, আধ ঘন্টা পর ফোন করছি। So this is the thing. So this is known as vascular function curve. Now, if you understand this much, then rest part is quite easy. And you can understand yourself. I will simply provide you the ingredients, and it will be up to you to understand. So I will simply provide you the ingredients. Now, if we just press both the card, I have shown you both the card. So this is one card, and that was another card. So this is cardiac function card. RAP, and cardiac output. This is cardiac function card. Now you could have understood that why I made it RAP. And this is a vascular function card, RAP, and venous return, and the curve is like this. So these are the two cards. So one is cardiac function card, a modified cardiac function card. I intentionally made both the thing RAP. With some motif. I will show you why. So this is, both are RAP. This is cardiac function card or ventricular function card, and this is the vascular function card causing venous return. And we all know, in a steady state, cardiac output and venous return are same. So I have developed these two cards. Now let us see. Now next point. Try to understand the next point. Now if we draw a single diagram, suppose this is a single diagram. Here it is RAP, and here it is cardiac output or venous return. So that will be the ventricular function curve or cardiac function curve. This is the cardiac function curve, and that will be the vascular function curve. So this is cardiac, and this is vascular, and this is the point of intersection. Which will precisely determine the cardiac output. So it is the point of intersection will determine the cardiac output. It is the point of intersection which determines the cardiac output. If due to any reason there is negative inotropism, the cardiac function curve will go there, and that will be the cardiac output. If there is positive inotropism and cardiac function curve is going left and up, that will be the cardiac output. Or if, so these are the point of cardiac output. If we just remove it, so these are the cardiac output. Or if this vascular function curve change its position, if the vascular function curve change its position, if the animal or if the person is greater hydrated or lesser hydrated, if the blood volume is more or blood volume is less, this vascular function curve will shift this way or shift that way. So this is with greater blood volume, or with lesser volume. So if the blood volume changes, this curve, vascular function curve, will move up or down. You got my point? So in that case, that will be the cardiac output. So if this is normal, if this is positive inotropism, if this is negative inotropism, if this is high volume, this is low volume, and if this is normal volume. So if we get such a situation, you can understand very well. So in case of normal cardiac function with normal volume or normal vascular function curve, with normal vascular function curve with U volume. U volume means normal volume. That will be the cardiac output. In case of normal vascular function curve with normal volume but there is positive inotropism, that will be the cardiac output. তানিয়া একটা ক্লাসে আছি গো, একটু পরে ফোন করছি। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, ইমার্জেন্সি নেই তো কিছু? ঠিক আছে। Now, if with normal cardiac function curve, if there is hypovolume, then this will change like this. So we can write like that cardiac output can be increased or can be decreased with increased blood volume or with decreased blood volume, in that way. Right? Increased blood volume or decreased blood volume. Sorry, with increased inotropism or with decreased inotropism. Sorry. So cardiac output can change with increased inotropism or with decreased inotropism, because this is inotropism. Or cardiac output can change with increased blood volume and with decreased blood volume. So when the blood volume increases, the cardiac output change from here to here, because this is the vascular function curve with greater blood volume. This is the vascular function curve with lesser blood volume. So cardiac output will change from here to here with normal cardiac function but with lesser blood volume. Cardiac output will change from here to here with normal cardiac function but with greater blood volume. So in that way it can change. Now if there is increased cardiac function and also increased blood volume, then that will go there. So these are all permutation combination. So it is a point of intersection. It is a point of intersections between cardiac function curve and vascular function curve will determine the precise cardiac output in normal state as also in different variation of different such variation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there are at least 9 situations. 9 situations, among which one is normal, and with 8 different physiological variation, physiological or abnormal variation, where cardiac output, precise cardiac output can be determined by the interactive pattern of this cardiac function curve and vascular function curve. With this cardiac function curve and vascular function curve. Now this, as I have given here only 2 examples. One is one example of cardiac function where it is changing with changing inotropism. So cardiac function curve is changing here with positive inotropism, there with negative inotropism. Vascular function curve is changing there with hypervolemia, here with hypovolemia, and it is their interactive pattern. But there are plenty such occasions, plenty such situations, and plenty such combination of various situations. Plenty such occasions, plenty such situations, and plenty such combination of such situations where you can study, and it is a quite interesting thing. So that is your home assignment. You take this as a home assignment, that how this cardiac function curve and vascular function curve, how this cardiac function curve and vascular function curve, they interact with each other in order to determine the precise cardiac output in healthy state and with various physiological variation in healthy state and also in disease state. Suppose if this cardiac function curve is depressed in case of heart failure, as it is here, negative inotropism. So in negative inotropic state, that will be the cardiac output with negative inotropic state. So in negative inotropic state, this negative inotropic state will lead to a cardiac output like this. But in negative inotropic state, it may so happen, due to some reason whatsoever, which we will know later, there is an increase in volume. accumulation of volume, increase in volume. With increase in volume, this cardiac output will be shifted there. So there is a little amount of compensation. So earlier this was the cardiac output, then next cardiac output is increased a bit. So in case of, say, negative inotropism due to heart failure, there is falling cardiac output from here to here, but due to accumulation of fluid and shifting of vascular function curve, there is little compensation, little amount of compensation of that cardiac output. So this is quite interesting. This is quite interesting. Or in other words, suppose cardiac output is reduced from here to here due to hypovolemia. It was the normal cardiac output, and it is reduced to here due to hypovolemia, and that thing is compensated by positive inotropic. So as a compensation, heart will start contracting more. So in that way, cardiac output becomes this. So it is a bit compensation. Earlier this was the cardiac output, now this becomes cardiac output. So in that way it is a compensated. So whenever there is volume problem, there is inotropic compensation. When there is inotropic problem, there may be volume compensation, and many such permutations and combinations are there in many books. You can collect them and try to understand this. So this is an interactive pattern. I only mentioned two situations. Our tool is, one is cardiac function curve in red, and there is vascular function curve in blue, and their interaction. And by interacting them, how they precisely determine the requirement specific, situation specific, time specific cardiac output. And when they vary, how they vary. When they increased or decreased, how they compensated by the other candidate or other factor. And there are plenty such combinations of such factors. So what happens if the vasomotor, so we took it granted here that the vasomotor tone is same, constant. If the vasomotor tone changes, suppose there is a change in vasomotor tone. If there is a change in vasomotor tone, what will happen to these curves? If there is a change in venous resistance, what will be the change in this curve, and how this combination of curves will behave? That is a range of very interesting subject, very interesting issues. What happens in heart failure? What happens in heart failure with volume overload? What happens with various, all such other permutations and combinations, and how that will determine the cardiac output in precise manner, in a time specific, need based, requirement specific, requirement based pattern. That's an area of interesting issues which if, some of you must feel interested and study on this and give me feedback. Study on this and give me feedback. Already I crossed my duration. Give me feedback, and that is quite interesting. So with this I finish my vascular physiology. Some things are left still, but that I shall cover during my regulation of cardiovascular system. But more or less, this is probably the fifth class. This is probably the fifth class of vascular physiology which I took. So go through this, interact between yourselves, and continue to send questions to me. I will try to answer some of them as it is possible. So thank you, and have a good time. Have a very remain very careful, because situation is very difficult. Continuously every day we are losing some of our near and dear. I lost a few of my very near and dear, my close relative, my students, two of my students, and in last 1 week, and that is creating lot of depression among us, and I am feeling quite difficult to continue these classes. Very difficult. I need to fight with myself to organize all these classes, because this recording of these classes, then processing this video into downsizing this video, all these things are quite time consuming and quite laborious. Still, as the situation demands, we need to continue with all this. My request is, just go through all this. You are also feeling similar anxious and panic situation at your place, but we have to do our duty, and that is the assignment, or a human kind of assignment we have taken up to continue in our life. So be careful, খুব সাবধানে থাকবে, and when the regular classes will resume, all the questions, all the difficult issues I shall take care of. Thank you till then.